Richard, thank you for joining us. Our session last month, we touched on, we have one of our colleagues who grew up in the Ukraine, and he shared some of the personal realities. We felt like when you were available, and I know we had to adjust, you and I have been messaging during this because you've been in other meetings talking about this variety of things. So I appreciate you taking some time to join with us. We wanted to close today's session, and I know we're going over, but we'll have this and other people can look at it at a later time if you have to leave. But can you talk to the personal reality? I know you spent the last 3 years living over there, and you know a lot of people there, and this is kind of on your radar. And I've got some of the stuff you shared with me, so I'll follow your lead.
Well, thanks. It's wonderful to be listening to all of you and to be part of this roundtable. As Maury mentioned, my wife and I just returned a few months ago from serving a 3-year mission in Eastern Ukraine for our church. There's 2 missions for the church there, and we're in the Dnipro mission, so the eastern part where a lot of this action is taking place. I also ran our office. I was a partner at Latham and Watkins, and I ran the Moscow office for 4 years. And so I think the first thing we need to appreciate is the personal impact is most direct right now on Ukrainians. It's nothing short of disastrous. In fact, my wife and I, part of the reason I couldn't join your whole meeting is we're preparing to head on over to Poland to help with some of the refugee issues over there. But the common Russian folks that are just trying to put food on the table for their families and find employment are also beginning to feel the pinch. I think one of the lessons that history keeps reteaching us is poor or evil leaders create a great swath of problems for people. And we're seeing that in Ukraine. It's been 1 month today that the war began. It's not forget what Putin calls it, a military practice or special maneuver. It's a war, and it's significant. I think the 2 things I would say where Putin has been surprised and underestimated Ukraine. I think to some extent he expected to be a liberator, at least to key parts of Eastern Ukraine. And while there is and remains some pro-Russian sentiment, particularly in the Donbass region of Donetsk and Luhansk, he's actually, found just the opposite. In fact, there's been a deep firming of Ukraine identity and a lot of very strong feelings, as you would expect, against the Russian war. I have a very good friend who's in Odessa. He was in the Soviet Army and then moved over to the Navy, and a fairly senior person. And he's just very, very anti-Russian right now. And it's created a great divide that is going to be hard to fill. So the first mistake was he expected to be a liberator. The second, he expected the war to go fairly quickly. And that hasn't happened for a variety of reasons. We get lots of information from our friends and others who are fighting the war. And Ukrainians are not going to lay down their arms anytime soon. I hope that peace will prevail. I think on the Ukrainian side, Zelensky, who I think, as most of you know, came to fame and was elected president because he played someone who sort of became president of the country. It was the most popular comedy in Ukraine, and at the time we all smiled. Who is this guy? And what experience does he have? And I think in his early part of his presidency, we worried a little bit about his experience, but I think he's shown a lot of people that he has a strong character. So Putin's back on his heels a little bit, but he's not going to go away anytime soon. You're all talking about the long-term impacts and energy and cybersecurity. That's spot on. This is going to drag on for a while, but we're hoping for peace. I won't get into, if anyone's interested, I can give my thoughts about sort of what that might look like. But I wanted to give sort of a touch to the personality here. We have dear friends who have passed away in this war. We have many friends who are refugees around the world. And one of the things I think that is not appreciated, the vast majority of these refugees are never coming back to Ukraine. There was already a deep desire among Ukrainians, many, to go westward. Many would work in places like Germany and Poland, in construction jobs because they could earn a multiple of what they could earn in Ukraine. And so there's a real diaspora that's taking place here that will have long-term impacts on Ukraine, and places like Western Europe, as they take millions of refugees in, they won't be going back anytime soon. But there's a real impact, and probably the best example of that is in the port city of Mariupol. And we've been to Mariupol very often. It was the one little piece of the Donbass region that I was permitted to go into because the rest was an active war zone. Yeah, pull that up. You can see, is this the video, Maury? Yeah.
Yes.
So this is a drone video, and it's just hard. These are not military installations. These are not factories. These are apartment complexes, and you can just see the devastation. There's the sea nearby, and the people have been without access to food and electricity for several days. And it continues. We have a friend there who escaped Mariupol and walked 5 days to get to the city of Dnipro, where we lived, without supplies. Maybe you can go to the next one. I just want to put a face on some of these things more. Do you have that?
Yeah, I was able to get most of the pictures down, so let me go to them right now.
Yeah, just to get a sense. So these are all members of our church from Mariupol that arrived yesterday. And this is at one of our ward houses, one of our churches in Dnipro. And you can see we're turning the church into a refugee center. So beds, cots, pillows and things. I really smile. You look at the kids, the youth, they're the same around the world. They've just escaped Mariupol and they're giving peace signs. I don't know what other signs they're giving there, but that's the face of people. Now, these are two touching pictures. Here's a brother on the right who I know very well with his wife, and they've just escaped Mariupol. They went about 2 weeks without food, limited water. You have to have water, but limited water. And they just escaped. And if you look in those eyes, that's the face of war on civilian population. And then here is a picture of the new mission president who replaced me. He's Ukrainian, he's from Donbass. And this is the little laundry room in our apartment in Dnipro. And even though Dnipro is still far away from what's happening, it's still getting bombs and air sirens. So they have little children, they have 4 little boys. And multiple times during each day and night, they have to get up and go into the laundry room and wait for bombs to pass by. So that's a little bit of the face that you see of what's going on in Ukraine. And it's sad. We hope and we pray for peace. So, Maury, I hope that's what you wanted.
Does this look any different in the future if Putin's not involved? I know it's a big question, but is there a future in terms of what does that future look like in terms of those relations between the West and what's going on right now? How much of this is just him versus the country overall? Does anybody have a point of view on that? I don't know if Richard, you lived in both places, and Duncan with geopolitical stuff. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, first off, I have to say to Duncan, очень приятно. As I said in my view, I think one very poor leader like a Putin can have a dramatic impact. I think the flip side of that coin gives us comfort that one good leader can have a dramatic impact. As I listened, I think there is a fatigue. The news of Ukraine is slowly going to move to the second page and the fourth page and the 10th page of the newspapers, if people read newspapers anymore. But the heartache and the pain will continue. He clearly is running this show. I'm not sure who else is pulling the strings, but hopefully there's a resolution to be made. It's going to be very hard.